so look forward to this. It's his Icebreaker speech for Terrence Brown. And you can tell us.
Thank you, Madam Toastmaster. When I walked in the room, Sandy's first words to me were, "Whoa." And my first thought was, that's exactly what I was shooting for when I dressed this morning. Hello all. For those who don't know me, my name is Terrence Brown. I was born on the east side of Chicago and resided for the first 18 years of my life in the south suburbs of Chicago. My interests include travel, history, sports, and video games on occasion. Chicago is a very special place, near and dear to my heart for a variety of reasons. My parents migrated from the south to Chicago. They met and married there. I remember as a child, my mother would take me on occasion for eye doctor appointments on the L train downtown. And as a treat on the way back, she would buy me the biggest Tootsie Roll candy bar she could find. What I love about Chicago, other than its people, its culture, its architecture, its sporting venues, I love how it makes me look so small when I'm looking up at those great big buildings. My ideal vacation in Chicago would be to spend a week with my daughter visiting historical venues such as the Field Museum, the Shedd Aquarium, maybe even Wrigley Field. Yes, I'm a Cubs fan. Deal with it. Some of my sports loyalties harken back to the early 90s. Growing up in the suburbs as a kid, when you're a Chicago Bulls fan or a Duke Blue Devils fan, you notice certain symbols of status. Some of you may remember the first time, hey, so-and-so down the street, they just got cable. Well, my status symbol in the mid-90s was, we just got a basketball hoop. We had made it. One of my hobbies, or depending on who you talk to, one of my obsessions is gaming. I started at 5 with an Atari 2600, and my mother often asked me, boy, when are you going to give this up? Well, that was 24 years ago, and I don't think it's going to end anytime soon. I find it fascinating that something that was considered so niche, so out of the mainstream, is now very mainstream. I knew it was mainstream when we went from being the small little kids to being, teenagers with acne, to now we're talking my coworkers, and yes, even some of my superiors, are talking about their most recent accomplishments in Call of Duty and NFL Madden. I also think of how much I love Chicago because of how much my mother loved it. My mother has taught me many lessons, but one that stands out to me is when I was 5 years old. Somehow along the way, she came up with this tradition that she'd take us out on errands, and the last place we would end up is Jewel-Osco. She started the tradition of, well, when you leave Jewel-Osco, I'll buy you a $5 Transformer toy. So this went on for a few months, and suddenly I think my mother realized the monster she had just created, and she wanted to take some corrective measures to address this. So one day, we're ending our trip in Jewel-Osco, and she says, okay, Terrence, it's time to leave. Meanwhile, I'm staring at the wall of toys saying, but I haven't picked up my toy yet. She calls me a second time. Terrence, let's go. And a third time. And a fourth time. Now at this point, I'm in the zone. All I see is a wall of toys. I don't hear anything else going on. But for a split second, I realize, Mom's not calling me anymore. So I peek out at the photo counter. There's no Mom in sight. I look to the Jewel side. I see tons of checkout ladies. I don't see Mom in sight. I'm still okay. I think to myself, well, maybe she's just waiting for me in the car. So I walk to the parking lot, look for a 1982 gray Buick Park Avenue, leather interior. I don't even see that car. I don't see any Buicks. I begin to panic. I run back to the toy aisle. I quadruple check. And then I notice, as I'm sauntering towards the exit, and I'm sobbing at this point, there's a 1982 Buick Park Avenue just slowly creeping up to the very front of Jewel Oscar. I jump in the car. Once I get a hold of myself and I say, "Where were you?" And she says, "Well, I thought I'd teach you a lesson." She drove around the block once. Needless to say, that pretty much put the kibosh on any toy standoffs in the future. And that just stands out to me as one of the things that my sister, my mother, and I can laugh about 20 plus years after the fact, where we collectively conceded the only reason it's funny is because you're still here. So that is my story in a nutshell, and I thank you for your time.
Absolutely. Just one minute. Terrence, sometimes, most of the time, if we kidding, and you get to be a recipient of this, we would like to present you with some icebreakers, because you just did it.
Thank you.
The very first one. Thank you.